if you think in decades rather than months, you're going to be much more successful. To give you an idea, even at our company, any marketing initiative that we use, we are always going with the intention of we're going to be doing this for the next 4 or 5 years.
Welcome to the Property Management Success Podcast, where we interview leaders in the industry to uncover the secrets to profitability, efficiency, and achieving true freedom, whether it's your time, money, or lifestyle. I'm your host, Tony Klein, and I'm here to help you build a wildly successful property management business. Let's get to it. Welcome back to another episode of the Property Management Success Podcast. Today I have Stephen Fox with Upkeep Media, and I'm really excited to get into this because I've listened to quite a bit of Stephen's content, and I think he's got a lot of wisdom to share with us. So, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So I want to jump right into some of the juice. I want to get us some juice. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on your background, but I want to at least tell people why you are a subject matter expert in this space. So why don't you just share a little bit about you and the company that you run right now?
I was a CPA by profession. I worked at a Big Four accounting firm for about 4 years. Absolutely hated what I was doing there. At the time, I had nothing else to really fall back on, and I started to kind of self-educate. And I ended up falling into what we call affiliate marketing. And essentially, affiliate marketing is when you create some sort of property online. You have to figure out how to drive traffic to it, and then people will click on a link, and you'll get a commission for people clicking on that link if they go and purchase something at its most basic level. So I ended up basically with my now business partner, who is also my best friend. But basically we ended up creating a few affiliate sites. And this is while we were working at an accounting firm. While I was working at an accounting firm, my business partner was in finance. And then after a while, we're like, you know what? We can probably do this for businesses that need to drive people to actually find their business. And that's kind of how we almost stumbled into it. Now, we weren't always in the property management space. We actually had started at first, kind of like anyone that's starting out a business, just like, hey, anyone that is willing to pay me for the knowledge and the, let's say, skill set I have, I will gladly try to help you.
Yeah. The target client profile is you have a pulse. And,
yeah, pretty much. Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I'm sure, as you know, Tony, is a terrible way to go about it as a business. But at this time, just getting started out, basically just needed people that were willing to kind of take a risk on us. So for the first year, roughly a year, might have been a little bit more than that. As I was saying, we're just kind of taking anybody. And it had just kind of happened by chance that we had a couple property management clients. So at the time, we were literally cold calling businesses just to try to get our foot in the door, try to get a meeting, and then from there, just trying to provide as much education as we could. And then some of those people would want to sign up and actually have us help them up with their online presence. And one of the companies that we actually fortunately got introduced to was, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Kelly Tollefson
Sure.
from T-Square Properties. And so she actually was big in NARPM, and she was eventually became the NARPM president. But she took a risk on us and was one of our first clients. And basically from there, we were able to get pretty good results. So we had Kelly, and then we had a couple other property management companies after our first year in business. When I say a couple, I literally mean a couple. I think we had like 4 or 5 type of thing.
Yeah.
And at that point, we were like, okay, what if we just go really deep into one industry and try to figure out how we can market best for this one industry rather than trying to be a jack of all trades and applying to every single, person out there with a pulse, as you said before. So that's kind of how we ended up stumbling into property management. And I literally say stumbling because it was by accident. But ultimately, that was about a decade ago. So now it's actually been 9 years. So we've been doing this for 9 years exclusively with property management companies. And one of the reasons why we chose to specialize also is because, as you know, property management is a little bit of a different type of business compared to most local businesses or compared to most home services businesses, right? You have a large percentage of your target audience that is not physically located in your city where you service, but you need to go and attract them. So if you go to like a traditional marketing company, they generally don't understand that. And they'll set up a campaign, they'll get you tons of leads, but those leads end up being a lot of tenants. And they're like, look, this is great. You had 30 leads last month, and you're there like, no, I had 0 leads. These are all tenants, which I'm not looking to attract, through my ad campaign or through my website, because I don't have an issue finding tenants on like the major listing sites, for example. So that's kind of how it came to be. And honestly, just through a lot of experience, a lot of self teaching over the last decade, that's essentially how I ended up gaining my knowledge up to this point.
I love that you decided to niche down and focus. That's one of the things I talk about with my clients when we're working with them is you got to find your target audience. You got to have the language and the words that resonate with them, and you got to be able to target them to offer value where you are different than all the rest of the noise that's out there. And so by doing that, I'm sure you've learned a lot of the specific pain points that property management companies have in their marketing. What are some of the things that you've learned in the last 9 years that have helped you help other businesses, other property management companies? What do you see as when they either come to you, either as a client, or I know you have a lot of free content out there online. What are some of those pain points that they're trying to solve?
At the most basic level, a lot of companies just have no idea how to bring in leads from the internet. So the majority of property management companies out there are growing through the referrals and referrals only. Don't get me wrong, referrals are super important and you want to build up your referral network as much as you can. But if you really want to scale your business, it's tough to do that if you're relying solely on referrals. You might have some years where you have a ton of referrals that come in, and then you have another year where referrals are let's say, dried up a little bit. So at its most basic level, that is one of the biggest mistakes we see property management companies make. And the issue is that they'll rely solely on those referrals thinking it's going to continue. And then when it stops is when they're like, I need marketing. The problem with that is it takes time to build up a marketing system, marketing funnel in play. If you are going at it when you're at a point where you have no leads coming in, it's too late. It's not something where you switch it on and the next day you have leads flowing in. Now, when we first started about a decade ago, it was a little bit easier than it is today. I'll put that out there as well. So if you have done marketing like a decade ago and you're like, no, it is that easy. Yeah, it was much easier a decade ago. Today, the landscape's changed a lot. You have a lot more companies that have entered the space. The costs in general just have gone up. So like, for example, if we're talking even Google Ads, if you look at the cost per clicks from 2015 versus 2024, you're probably looking at like 10 times the cost. So there's a lot of factors that basically have contributed to the cost rising, but it's just made it much harder to compete. And what ends up happening is it's the companies that have invested in a longer term type of approach and that have consistently put in the effort that are, let's say, winning the race at this point in property management.
Well, before we hit record, you and I were chatting a little bit about endurance sports, lifting weights. And this kind of takes me back to that conversation. It's you don't go to the gym, you don't sign up, and the first day you walk out of the gym, you don't see a ton of results. It's that consistency, that continuous effort over time that delivers the results. And I hear you saying that's the same thing with marketing. You're not going to just turn it on and have it start delivering immediate results. Is that accurate?
Yeah, 100%. I think that applies to everything in business. I think if you think in decades rather than months, you're going to be much more successful. Mm-hmm. To give you an idea, even at our company, any marketing initiative that we use, we are always going with the intention of we're going to be doing this for the next 4 or 5 years. So you were mentioning the content that you've seen online.
Yeah.
We've been creating content for the last 8-9 years. It's within the last probably 3 to 4 years that people are even like, I've heard of you before. So for about like 3-4 years, I was sitting there writing articles by myself, posting them, optimizing them, building up backlinks to our website, creating YouTube videos by myself, putting them out there, no one ever finding them. And, it's tough because it takes that long-term mindset, but eventually it has like that snowball effect where it's like, okay, one piece of content built on top of another, built on top of another, your audience grows and grows and grows. As your audience grows, the way the internet generally works as well is Google takes notice of that, YouTube takes notice of that, and as a result, they kind of reward you. So if you have an audience of 1,000 people, it's going to be much quicker to get from 1,000 to 1,500 than it was to go, let's say, from 0 to 500. It's just the way that it works. And that's what I was saying with anything in business, right? With your operations as well. It's not day one where everything is going to be crisp. I mean, you hope eventually it gets to that point, but I can almost guarantee you your first year in business, you're going to have a lot less success in terms of scaling your operations than you will maybe in like your third or fourth year. It's just like anything in life. It takes time and you got to be consistent with it.
Yep. Well, I know as people start looking into marketing and they think, okay, well, I want to grow. And this is a common theme right now. I know the market is shifting. As you had mentioned, a lot of the realtor referrals or the referral sources, those kind of come in waves. They can be really strong at one point, and then it kind of dries up a little bit. And so I've heard this theme of people looking. They say, look, I'm still churning clients out the back end just through natural attrition. You have good churn where you're selling the properties as they leave your portfolio. You have neutral churn, which is I have a family member moving in, and you have negative churn, which is, hey, we screwed up or they were a bad fit to begin with. We shouldn't have brought them on. And so we still have that happening on the back end, and yet my growth has slowed. And so if you had somebody that came to you in that situation where they need to grow just to stay even, they're not even getting to the point where they're growing, and so the revenue is not necessarily coming in through that additional growth to help fund some of this marketing that you mentioned is going to take a little bit of time to get kicked in to start seeing results. I know in some of your other content you mentioned, people really need to see you 7 or 8 times before they really identify you as a possible expert or authority in the marketplace. So we've got to get these people in action and get them starting to do the things that they need to do to have some progress with this. So let's get a little bit practical. What would it take if I'm just starting out? If I came to you, I was a client, and I came to you and I said, I need to fix it. I need to fix my leads that are coming in. I'm sure there's a whole other conversation that we could have about lead conversion. Maybe we'll have that at the end of this, or maybe we'll need to jump back on another time. But let's just talk about generating those leads. What would your advice be when somebody first comes to you?
So the first thing I would say is we would need to analyze kind of where the company is at. So there's a bunch of different possible situations there. You can have a company that has 50 doors, and let's say they're less established. Or you can be talking about a case where a company has, let's say, 500 doors or 1,000 doors under management. So it really varies depending on where that company is currently positioned, and also, never mind just the size, but where that company is positioned from an online perspective as well. So to give you an idea on that, if it's a company that has been around for a decade and their website has been live for a decade, it's just really not working for them at this point, they're going to have generally an easier time competing online than the company that started 6 months ago or a year ago. The reason being is the age of that company's domain has a big impact on how much Google trusts it at the most basic level. So the first thing that you would need to do is kind of look at the company as a whole, be like, okay, what lead sources are working for you right now? What have you tried in the past that didn't work? And where are you currently positioned from an online perspective? If it's a company that is like I said, 500 doors, they've been around for 15 years, and we see that, okay, they're already on like page 2 or 3 of Google, it's a no-brainer that they can probably boost up their rankings on Google pretty easily and in a pretty time-efficient period. Versus that company that's maybe at like 50 doors and their website is 6 months old, that's a much more uphill battle. So if they're at a point where they're like, I absolutely need leads now, then the strategy is going to be different for them. Honestly, at that point, you're better off with like a boots on the ground type of strategy and focusing on growing your referral network. So I know I said before, you don't want to just rely on referrals, but if you're a new company, that's going to be one of the best ways to start off.
Yeah.
And one thing that I don't see a lot of in property management, and it's something that we've started to offer to some of our clients, is helping them actually grow their referral network. So a lot of property managers out there will go and they'll get referrals from agents that they already know through a professional relationship, or they'll try to attend some meetups. But you can establish relationships online as well with other realtors in your network, right? So if you're actively going out there and trying to establish relationships and set up phone calls with other realtors, it's a good way to grow that realtor referral network in a way that you probably wouldn't be able to do if you're just going to meetings, because at the end of the day, you probably have like 5% of realtors out there that are actually going to those meetings, right? And then you also don't want to just focus on realtors in that case. Like, think of anyone that would be in regular contact with your target audience. So you could have like a CPA firm. You can have an estate planner, real estate lawyers. You want to try to think of like everybody that's out there that regularly is in front of investors and try to establish a relationship with those individuals as well. So like I said, it really varies depending on kind of where the company's at and what their opportunities are. But usually what we do is we'll do an assessment and we'll talk to them, and from there figure out what plan of action makes the most sense.
So one of the things that we do when I'm working with my clients is we build that up. I love the additional referral sources. We have a list of about 33, I think, is what's on the list of referral sources. And of course, you're not going to try to attack all 33, but it gives people options because everybody's got a little bit different personality, different strengths. And so we look at that. I kind of look at referrals as like one of the three legs on a stool. You got to have your inbound marketing, your outbound marketing, and then your referral marketing. And then under referrals, you have inbound and outbound there as well. But I definitely see it's not like one or the other. It's you have to have a combination of the three because, as you had mentioned, some of them take longer, and you don't want to rely just on one lead source, because if that lead source dries up, you're starting from scratch.
100%. And the companies that we work with that have the most success in terms of growth, they're not just relying on one strategy for exactly what you were just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of any really established, successful business out there, you're seeing them from all different angles, right? And it's the same thing for a local property management company. Like, if you really want to make a big push for growth, you need to be visible everywhere that your target audience is going.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously, I think that you bring value to the industry, or we wouldn't have you on the podcast. And
Appreciate it.
yeah, and so I don't want this to sound like a commercial for Upkeep Media, but I do want to give you the opportunity to dig in and kind of tell us, like, if I talk a lot about the bullseye when we're defining our target client profile and defining the bullseye, which means if I could just snap my fingers and have every single client in my portfolio match this target profile, what's that look like for you? Who do you think you can have the biggest impact for, and who's the best fit for working with a company like yours to help generate leads for management companies?
Yeah, so generally, our ideal client fit will have 100 plus doors under management. You'll have a longer term mindset of growth. You're looking for something to build for sustainable growth, where you're looking for a partner that will be with you for years to come and help you kind of build out a marketing funnel for your business. Those are the main criteria that at the end of the day, like, that are the best fits. If you're someone that is looking like just to try to bring in as many leads as you can over the next 3 months, probably not a good fit. As I was saying, we build marketing strategies that are sustainable, that are going to build long-term growth over the long run. A lot of our clients have been with us for like 5, 6, 7. We have some clients that have been with us literally since when I was doing cold calls a decade ago. We're very fortunate for that. But those clients, the reason why they've stayed around is because when we have time to work on a business, we're able to get those returns growing exponentially. So with us, what's a little bit different is if you think of like a pay-per lead service, you're always pretty much paying the same price per lead unless they increase the cost per lead that they charge. Like if we're talking all property management. It's not to say don't use that. By all means, if you get a return on it, use it. The difference with us is like we'll charge a monthly service fee, but that service fee is going to stay the same even when your lead flow starts to increase. So at the start, it's harder because it takes time to build up. But eventually, over time, that lead flow increases and your cost stays the same, so your cost per lead goes down. We have clients that are paying like $20 per lead in some markets. And these are like big metropolitan markets where they're generating like 130 to 150 leads a month. And like they've grown quite a bit because of it. So anyways, back to your original question, general best fit is someone that has at least 100 doors and a longer term mindset for growth and is looking to build up a sustainable marketing strategy that can help them grow for like the next decade to come.
Okay. So if I fit that profile, if I say I'm in it for the long haul, I'm going to be in business 5 years from now, so I might as well start, planting the best tree possible so it grows to be the biggest, strongest, cover the most area in my marketplace. What are we talking about funds wise? And I know it's different. I know you guys have a service fee, but like, what do I need to think? Because I know a lot of companies, when things get tight, they're like, marketing's the first to go because it's not actually a part of operations. We could probably just sell our way out of it. We'll just be more aggressive on outbound. So we're going to eliminate marketing. And I think that's a huge mistake. It's basically, you're putting a tourniquet on your arm and just saying, well, we're going to stop the bleeding, but that arm's going to fall off because, we've cut the blood flow to it. So let's talk about, if I were to try to create a budget, whether using you or not using you, if I was just in the marketplace saying, okay, I'm going to invest in some of these long-term growth strategies, what are we talking about? A percentage of budget? Are we talking about a dollar amount? Like, what do we look at for making sure that we're properly funded in our marketing efforts?
Yeah. So it really depends also on what your goals are in terms of growth. But let's say that you have a growth mindset and you're like, I want to get as big as I can. General rule of thumb, if we're just using like a real quick and dirty one, it's kind of 10% of revenue should be geared towards your marketing. Now, it's not to say you have to go that route, but that's like the general business rule. In most markets, you're looking at roughly about $1,500 per month, at least to get things started, to build up like a long-term sustainable strategy. But the truth is it depends. So to market in San Diego is going to be different than marketing a company in Pocatello, Idaho, right? Naturally, it's a lot more competitive, but at the same time, your client lifetime value is much higher. So the markets where it's generally more expensive to compete in, you also make more money once you bring on that client.
Sure.
Yeah.
So where would you suggest people start? I know we've talked a little bit about pay per click. We've talked about SEO. We've talked about content. And I know it's a content strategy, in my opinion, needs to be more than a single prong approach. And, but again, it comes down to time, resources, money, attention span. Like as business owners, we got a lot going on.
For sure.
So where would we start to, or do we have to start in all the areas and just start slow? Do we pick one avenue? Like what's the strategy to get going?
Yeah, I generally recommend what we call focus. Follow one course until success. So choose one avenue, get very good at it, get a return on it, and then you can move on to a second. We see it all too often where it's like, I do this and this and this, and it's like you're diluting your resources, you're diluting your efforts because you can't focus and get really good at one source. So it's not to say one works better than the other. I'm not a big fan of Google Ads in the property management space. Reason being is Google Ads have gotten extremely expensive. We still run them for some clients, but generally the cost to acquire a property using Google Ads is extremely expensive. So unless you have a large budget and you don't mind spending a lot to acquire a property, it's usually the route that we'd recommend staying away from. And again, it depends on the market, but most markets, that's what we see across the board these days. So to go back to your question, like where would I start to focus? I mean, definitely first thing you need to have down pat is a website that's actually going to convert a rental property owner. Second thing is you need to have an online reputation that's going to get someone to actually reach out, because you can have all the eyes in the world finding you. If your website looks like it was built in 1996 and your online reputation is like a 2-star review, no one's going to call you anyways, right? So that's, from our approach, we call that phase 1, like building the foundation of your business. So get that in place. Once you have that in place, that's when you want to start to focus on getting eyes on your business. Generally, in property management, we recommend focusing in on search engines to begin with. The reason why is when it comes to online marketing, you have 2 major avenues. You have social media and you have search engines, right? That's kind of we'll sum it up. That's like almost 100% of the market when it comes to online advertising. With property management, as we were discussing earlier, not all of your clients are physically located in the city that you service. You have a lot of out-of-state investors. When you run ads on social media, you have to choose a geographic location. So if you're running ads solely in your local area, you're going to be missing out on all of the owners that are not physically located there, which means you're not reaching a large percentage of your target audience. Now, you might think of social media also of just putting up posts on your social media. It's very rare you're going to get owners from those posts. It will help for tenants, but the truth is most social media platforms these days, they want you to pay. That's how they make their money, right? They don't make their money by you putting up posts for free. So even Mark Zuckerberg came out, I think it was about 4 years ago, and he said they're giving limited exposure to anyone that posts organically on their Facebook business page. That's just one example. But he's literally saying, if you go and you post on your Facebook business page, we're not even going to show it to all the people that follow you. Which means the odds of someone that is an owner that doesn't know about your business seeing that post are slim to none. So we do see companies where they're like, we post once a day on social media, but we're not really getting much. And there's a reason for that. It's because the way social media is designed is they don't want you to be getting much, because they want you to invest in their online ad platform. So that's why we generally focus in on search engines to begin with. It's because regardless of where that owner is physically located, you can have an out-of-state investor from California, but you're in Boise, Idaho, right? That owner goes online and they're searching up something relevant to investment properties in Boise or to finding a property management company in Boise, and your company can show up for them. So generally what we want to do is we want to focus in on search engines by creating a lot of content that ranks in search engines for solutions to problems that rental owners are encountering. And that will drive them to find your business. So when I say search engines, not just Google, YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. YouTube is really underutilized in the property management space. There's a few property management companies out there that utilize it well, but like literally I can probably count the number on one hand. It's a really untapped market. The thing with YouTube is that we see all the time is like people don't want to get in front of the camera. I get it. Like I'm a huge introvert myself. I've had to kind of like force myself to do videos over the years, but if you really want to get your business growing, like you have to force yourself into those uncomfortable situations. So usually that's kind of like the approach that we would go with for let's say a standard property management company or like a typical situation.
Okay, I want to circle back around to your business foundation, phase 1 you talked about, where you talked about your online reputation and making sure that your website doesn't look like it was built in 1995. But before I do that, because you made such an emphasis on SEO for property management companies, I want to get your opinion on the recent trend where when you do a Google search, instead of getting a list of the what Google thinks is the best matched websites to return for your inquiry, it's now giving you I think it's still Gemini, but it's whatever it is, their AI at the top where it's sort of summarizing things for you and telling you, is that going to affect getting SEO for property management companies, or is it going to help or hurt, or what have you
Yeah.
seen with that?
It's a good question. So what we've seen, whether it's on Google Gemini or you're talking ChatGPT or any of the AI search, if you look at how to actually show up in that AI search area, it's the exact same process. So the companies that are showing up in that AI search area usually have a very strong online presence. So it's almost like the practices that go into optimizing your website and creating a good online presence and a good user experience are only going to enhance your ability to show up in that AI section. So I shot a video on this a couple weeks back, and I literally went and I asked ChatGPT, how do I show up in ChatGPT for my property management company in Los Angeles, I think it was. And they give a list of criteria. If you look at that list of criteria, it's basically like you have to have really good quality content on your website. You have to have backlinks built to your website. You have to provide a really good user experience on your website. You want to have your business listed on other areas of the internet. These are all the exact same type of things that it takes to rank in Google in the organic section. So point being is, at least at this point, and this can change over time, obviously, these things are always evolving, but at this point in time, the companies that show up there are the same companies that show up in that organic section a large part of the time. So even when I did that video asking ChatGPT, I then went and I checked and I did a search like, okay, who are the best property management companies in Los Angeles? And then I analyzed kind of like their online presence. And those companies were all showing up very high for organic anyways. So they really go hand in hand.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's pop back to that phase one that you mentioned. So you want to have a good website that is modern, which is, I think it's easy to say, like you need to have a good website is easy to say, but to actually know what it means to have a good website is something else, right? We all know when we land on a good website, it's kind of like when I travel and I walk into the lobby of a nice hotel and you can feel that it's a nice hotel. You can feel from the lighting, the smells, just the layout of the lobby, the ways that the staff interact with you. You just know. You don't have to ask, hey, how much are these rooms? You just know it's nice. But to be able to tell somebody how to build a nice quality hotel that looks nice, it's harder to describe, to give somebody the step by step. So if we were to look at what does it mean to have a good website, what are you referring to there?
Yeah. So that's a good point that you're bringing up there. So the design of the website is super important. The way that it, just like you're saying with a hotel, the way that it makes you feel when you walk into that hotel is very important. So when I say a good website, aside from the design aspect, the messaging on the website needs to be super clear that you're talking to the owners, that you're addressing your primary target audience. So if it's investors, the content should be geared towards investors, for example. Other things are, from a conversion standpoint, you need to make it very, very easy for somebody to reach out. So we see all the time where on mobile, the phone number is not sticky and in the header of the website. On your articles throughout the website, it's just a page with text everywhere. There should be what we call call to actions throughout that text, or on a lot of sites we build, we'll have what we call a sticky sidebar. So no matter where the visitor is on one of those inner pages as they're scrolling through, there's a call to action on the right letting them know how to get in contact with the property management company. And usually we recommend offering some sort of value. So offer up, you see it all the time where people offer a free rental analysis. That's one angle you can go with. Another one that we have some clients that use that works pretty well is offering up like a free rental owner consultation, where they'll offer up basically a 15, 20, 30-minute meeting where they'll walk them through a bunch of different things that can help the regular real estate investor better optimize the performance of their rental properties. Then aesthetically, that is something, it's a little hard to, let's say, put in words. As you said, when you walk into a nice hotel, you just know. But one thing I do want to point out there is don't cheap out on the look of your website. I get it. It's a one-time cost though. The thing is, when it comes to property management, someone that doesn't know about your business, so a prospective owner, it's not like a hotel where they can walk in and get a feel for the business, right? The website is literally the only thing that they really have to judge you on. Even if it's coming from a referral, maybe that they got referred to 2 different property management companies. So the first thing that they're going to see is your website and your online reviews as well. So make sure that your website stands out in your marketplace. Make sure that you're fully confident that if someone came to your website over any of your competitors, they would find yours to be the best. What I'd suggest doing, just to, because we're all biased, obviously, right? We all think our website's beautiful. Find 10 different strangers. Ask them to look at your website and 5 other of your competitors. And then ask them, which one do you think is the nicest one? Which one would you want to actually reach out to? They won't have any bias. Don't tell them which one is your company's website, of course, but you want to try to get unbiased opinions on which one that they would actually want to reach out to. So in terms of like the actual aesthetics, it's hard to describe that without having any visuals. But of course, like I would say, try to find unbiased people and ask their opinion and show them your competitors' websites as well, and then get their feedback from there.
So do you have a list of things that when you evaluate, because you mentioned you helped people build websites. I wasn't aware of that. So if you do that when somebody comes in, do you have sort of a checklist that you walk people through, or is it individualized, by client?
It's individualized by client. So we'll work with clients if they already have a website and they have a good quality website. We can work with their existing website. It's not that if you come work with us, we have to build you a brand new website if you already have a good one in place. But if a lot of times what we'll see is like they have a decent site, but it can be better built from a conversion standpoint. So for example, it doesn't have a sticky sidebar that scrolls with the user on any of their internal articles. Meaning like when someone gets to an inner page of the website, there's nothing that is asking the owner to reach out to them, other than maybe having the phone number at the top. So we can go and we can just build around their existing site and add that in, which is going to be a much quicker solution than building a brand new website from scratch.
Okay.
But it does vary. I mean, we kind of assess the website when we see it.
All right, so then let's move on to the second thing in phase 1, or in that building that foundation. You mentioned online reputation.
Yeah.
And that's something that I am really passionate about, helping companies get to that online reputation. Because as you mentioned, when people are looking for a property management company, they either come through referral or they come online. I mean, there's very few other options where they're coming across your company. And so when they see your company online, you have to have positive reviews, but it's not enough to have 5 positive reviews and call it good, right? It's the number of reviews. I even think that sometimes it's okay to have the 1-star, the dreaded 1-star review that we get. It's not so much, oh no, we got a 1-star. It's now we're going to respond to that 1-star as if, not that we're responding to that 1-star review, but we're responding to our prospective client that's going to read our response to that 1-star review. So it gives us another opportunity to prove our worth when somebody gives us. Now, I'm not saying go look for getting 1-star reviews, but there certainly are ways to take advantage of it. But do you have any other input on around that online reputation, things that people should be doing or things that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, so a couple points. So one, agreed. If you get that 1-star review, try to spin it. If it's from someone who applied for a rental property but they just weren't qualified, explain the situation as much as you can from a legal standpoint. explain the situation. What'll happen is you might have a prospective owner that reads that 1-star review, sees how you handled that situation, is like, this is exactly how I'd want someone to handle my rental property. That 1-star review can actually lead to a client. We actually had a client that told us that not too long ago, and they were like, this guy called and he was literally like, I read the 1-star review that was left there and your response to it, and that's how I want someone to manage my property. And that's why they reached out to them in the first place. The second thing is, you want to have requesting reviews part of as much a part of your operations as anything else. Let's say, like, it should be automatic. So, example, you place a tenant in a new property. That's a trigger point. It's automatic that either you or your team member has to request a review from that new tenant. You have a rental property owner. They've been working with you for 2 years and they sold their property. It's automatic that you have to request a review. Now, on the subject of requesting reviews as well, asking once is not enough. You have to be annoying with it. Generally, people don't mind leaving a review, but they don't think of it. So they're like, yeah, I have no problem leaving a review. Just send me the link. And you send them the link and it's crickets. You never hear anything back. You need to badger them. Unfortunately, it's just like the way it is, but you have to generally follow up like anywhere from 3 to 5 times. Treat it like you would a sale, like a prospect for sales, right? If someone reaches out and you call them back and they don't answer that first time, you should be following up with them like at least 6 times. It's the same thing for reviews. Like, at the end of the day, like, you need to stay consistent with it, especially for companies that are newer, that haven't gotten negative reviews. I can almost guarantee they're going to come. The bigger you get, the more likely it is to happen. So make sure that you get ahead of it while you can, because if you have, let's say, 75 5-star reviews or 4 to 5-star reviews, and that 1-star review comes in, it's not going to impact your company as negatively as it would if you had 6 reviews and then you get a 1-star. So try to get ahead of it, make it a part of your regular operations, and stay consistent with the follow-up.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite takeaways of what you just said is the repetition, continuing to ask. I think we all have good intentions. We all, if somebody says, hey, would you say something nice about me online? Or would you give some positive feedback? And we've had a good experience. Of course, yeah. Why would I not do that? That's great. I'll send me the link. But then it's not at the top of my priority list. The repetition of asking more than one time for that review, simply because people have good intentions. They say, yes, I'll do it, but then it's not at the top of their priority list. And so what I really like about what you said is, don't be offended or don't feel like they are not going to give you a review when you ask one time and they don't do it. It's identifying all of the touch points throughout the life cycle. And we've gone through that, where we've identified when you bring on a new client, when you bring on a new vendor, when you bring on a new tenant, when you lease the property, when you have a really difficult maintenance situation. There's so many different touch points that you should be building in, asking for those reviews throughout your process. And I like that you are communicating with the audience that you can't just ask once and expect them to follow through. Some people will, but it's going to be a small portion. And don't get discouraged, because they will give it to you. You just have to continue to ask to where your ask is in front of them at an opportune time where they're willing to then take that time to give it to you.
Exactly, because the first time you requested it, maybe they were, in between carpool for their kids or something. They saw it come in, and they're like, oh, I'll get to this later. And, it just falls by the wayside. One thing on the subject of reviews that I think a lot of property management companies don't utilize as well is, Google reviews are great. Don't get me wrong, super important, and definitely the most important on the review spectrum. But another thing you want to look to try to do are build up case studies and get video testimonials from clients. The reason why is, once someone does get to your website, if you have case studies or success stories, whatever you want to kind of call them, on that site, it's going to help to convert people, meaning they're going to see that. It's going to make it much more likely for them to trust you and want to reach out. The second thing is you can use that in your actual sales process as well. So a lead reaches out, you're showing them your services. You can also be like, have you seen like some of our success stories, other clients you work with, just to kind of help them put themselves in the mind frame of being a client of yours and what that looks like. Whereas like most of the rental property owners out there, the average one has like one property, right? Or two properties, whatever it might be. They don't have a ton, so they don't have a ton of experience with property management. So if you can show them what it looks like for an ideal client when they work with you, it's just going to help you increase your closing rate. And if it's on your website, it'll also help increase the amount of people that reach out once they find you online.
I want to just mention one more thing and then get your feedback on it. And then I want to switch gears a little bit because I know we're coming short on time, but there's a couple other things I want to ask you about. But one of the things that we've done with our clients as we're working with them to gather additional Google reviews is, if you really think about it, it's in a landlord or landlord client's best interest to make you as easy as possible to be found online. It's in their best interest to give you that review, because by having your presence closer to the top of the SEO or search engines, and Google for sure looks at the number of reviews, and that contributes to your weight of should you be closer to the top of the page or somewhere down in the list. So it's really in their best interest. So we've created an article that we send out to the landlords, informing them that it's almost an expectation that if we do a good job for you, you're going to help us do a good job for you by reviewing us so that we can get our management company in front of more people. And here's where it benefits the landlord, in that tenants don't select the property that they want to live in based on who manages the property. They base it on, is it in the right location? Is it the right price? Is it next to the right school system? Whatever that is important to them. But be sure that they're going online to see, okay, this is the management company that's managing the house that I want to rent. Are they good people to rent from or not? Is this a good company that's going to be responsive to our maintenance needs? Are they going to be fair? Are they going to treat us well when we have a need? And if we don't have those reviews where we're able to show that we do a good job, they may not rent from us. If there's two homes that they're looking at, they're going to rent from the one that they feel like matches their needs, but also the company that's managing it is matching. So
that's a very good point.
We've got that campaign where it's like it's expected that a landlord client is going to give us a review so that helps us help them.
Yeah. No, that's I haven't thought of that. So that's a very good point. Like I said, I'm not an expert. Always learning, but I like that angle. That definitely is something I think that would benefit a lot of property management companies to go out and do and explain to their rental property owner, the landlord, like why they want to leave them a 5-star review.
Yeah. Okay, let's kind of wrap up. But you had mentioned that you have different strategies that management companies should be using at different sizes. And I know we touched on that. Like if you're a new company and you're under 50 doors, you're going to have a different strategy than if you're over 100. Is there some other breakpoints like 300, 500, 1,000? Like, does the strategy shift based on the bigger you get, or does it shift based on your goals that you're trying to accomplish?
A bit of both. So generally there's more advanced strategies once you're larger and once you have a larger audience already. So if you're a company where you're bringing in a lot of people to find you already via search engines, then what you want to try to do is re-engage those people. Generally, only about 5% of the people that find you for the first time are ready to reach out and become a lead. The other 95%, maybe they're in research mode right now. They're using a property management company. They're thinking of switching. Or they're in the process of buying an investment property. They're doing due diligence to see who can buy it once they actually who can manage it once they actually close on the deal. whatever it was, the first time they found you online, they weren't ready to reach out and become a lead. So what you want to do is stay top of mind with them. And there's two methods you can use to do that. So the first is what we call retargeting ads. So just to explain to everyone what that is, if you've ever been on Amazon or Nike and you were looking at a pair of shoes, you leave and all of a sudden you start seeing ads for that pair of shoes everywhere you go online.
Sure.
That's retargeting. You can do the same thing, but to a rental property owner that found you online but did not reach out to become a lead. So now that rental owner leaves your site. Maybe they're using a property management company right now. They're not super happy, but they're not yet ready to actually switch companies. Now they're seeing your ads everywhere they go online because you're retargeting them. 6 months goes by, you're like, they've had it up to here with the property management company. They're like, I'm ready to switch now. And they're like, hey, Tony Klein's property management has been, I've been seeing them everywhere I go. What happens is the more times that someone sees your brand, that sees your company, the more they'll start to trust you. It's just a psychological effect. That's why retargeting ads are so powerful. You want them to be seeing you over and over and over again, because the second they're ready to make that switch, you're going to be the first one that they think of. The second way you can stay top of mind with people is through email marketing. So email marketing, generally how it would work is you'd have some sort of valuable guide on your website. You'd have, let's say, an ebook that is about the best areas in Denver to consider for investing, something of that nature. And then in order for them to obtain access to that ebook, you're going to ask them for their name, their email, and some of our clients will ask their phone number as well. And then what you want to do is send them emails that provide value. So don't just be like, hey, saw on our website, let's schedule a call. They weren't ready to do that at that moment. Otherwise, they would have just picked up the phone. But what you want to do is send them emails that show when it comes to managing rental property in Denver or whatever market that your company is in, that you have a lot of value to add that the typical rental property owner might not know about. And then once you've provided a lot of value, that's when you can reach out and be like, hey, would you be interested in scheduling a call? We can talk about your investment goals. That's one of the reasons why you want to try to get the phone number if possible as well, so that you can also call them. So you can, when you're running email marketing, you can see who's interacting with your emails most often. If you see someone is reading every single email, that's a good sign. You should try to call that individual, or at least send them an email asking if they'd be interested in scheduling a call. So those are other ways that you can really expand once you're at a place where you're bringing in people to find you online. But the first step is always you need to have some sort of audience to do any of that, because if you have no audience, there's no one that's going to download an ebook because there's no one finding you, and you have no one to retarget to because again there's no one finding you.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stephen, this has been a lot of fun, really interesting for me. We've talked a lot about lead gen. We started to dabble there and just dip our toe into lead conversion. I'd love to have you back on at some point where we can dig deeper into that lead conversion, because obviously generating a bunch of leads is the first step. Increasing your closing ratio to be able to close more leads is what generates the income. It's not just generating the lead. You have to have the leads, but if you have 10 leads and you convert 0 of them, then we put no extra money in our pocket. So if you'd be willing, I'd love to have you on another time to really dig into that a little bit more.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This was fun. And anytime.
All right. So as we wrap up, I know, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to make this just a commercial. I wanted to make sure we were providing value, but I do think that you provide value to the industry. And if the people heard something in this podcast where they think that they would love to reach out to you and get more information just to see if you all are a good fit, how would people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so for any company that's interested, we offer what we call a property management lead gen session. And our goal in that call is to take a deep dive into your market. We'll take a look at your company, where you're positioned from an online standpoint. And we're going to give you an educational call basically about what some of your competitors are doing to bring on new properties using the internet, where your company is currently positioned online, and then give you recommendations that you can look to implement regardless of whether or not we work together, so that no matter what, you walk away from that call having learned something. So if you are interested in that, you can go to our website at upkeepmedia.com/growth and fill out the form on that page, book a time that's convenient for you to speak, and then a member of our team will reach out at that time.
Very good. Well, once again, Stephen, thanks so much for providing so much value to our audience, and I look forward to connecting with you again.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Property Management Success Podcast. We'll be back with another value-packed episode to help you level up your property management game. If you've got something valuable out of today's episode, please share it with a friend or colleague, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so you never miss out on future insights and strategies and tactics. Until next time, here's to your success.